Ethan moved slowly through the forgotten corridors of the underground structure. His boots crunched against layers of dust that had not been disturbed for centuries. The faint beam of his handheld lantern cut through the thick darkness, revealing broken walls covered in strange alien symbols. He had been exploring abandoned ruins on distant planets for years, but this place felt different. The deeper he went, the stronger the feeling grew that he was not truly alone. The air was heavy, almost alive, as though the walls themselves were watching him. He tried to shake off the unease, reminding himself that he had survived worse situations. Still, his hand stayed close to the small plasma tool strapped to his side, not as a weapon, but as something familiar to hold on to. The ruin stretched for miles under the planet's surface, built from smooth, dark stone that seemed resistant to time. The corridors narrowed and widened without reason, and many ended in collapsed chambers. Yet one path remained clear, almost as if something wanted him to reach the heart of this place. After hours of cautious steps, Ethan entered a vast circular chamber. The ceiling was lost in shadows, and his lantern could barely reveal the edges of the walls. In the middle of the room stood a single enormous cage. At first glance, the cage appeared empty. Its bars were made of a metal so black it swallowed light. Each bar was carved with glowing blue symbols that pulsed faintly, like the slow beat of a heart. Dust had settled everywhere in the chamber, but the cage itself was spotless, as if time dared not touch it. Ethan circled it carefully. His breath echoed in the silence. The cage door was slightly ajar, but not fully open. It was strange. Why build something so massive, lock it with such care, then leave it behind? He leaned closer, trying to peer inside. His lantern's glow spilled into the cage, but nothing was there. Only shadows. The emptiness should have been comforting, but instead it made him uneasy. He whispered to himself, "All this effort. To keep nothing?" His voice bounced off the chamber walls and returned to him, making him shiver. He felt foolish for speaking aloud, yet the silence pressed so heavily that he needed the sound of his own voice to keep steady. The cage door called to him. He touched the metal gently. It was cold, colder than the air around it. He felt a vibration under his palm, like something pulsing faintly beneath the surface. His instincts told him to step back, but his curiosity pushed him forward. He placed his hand on the handle. The door creaked slightly, as if waiting for him to move it. For a long moment, Ethan hesitated. He had spent his life chasing mysteries, unearthing ruins left behind by ancient civilizations. Many times he had found nothing but dust and silence. Yet sometimes he uncovered truths that reshaped what humanity thought it knew. This could be one of those moments. His heart pounded. With a slow push, he swung the door open. The sound echoed loudly, metal scraping against stone. The chamber shuddered, dust falling from the ceiling. His lantern flickered, and for a moment he thought it might go out. The cage was empty. Ethan let out a nervous laugh. Well, that was dramatic. But the laugh died quickly when he felt a sudden drop in the temperature. The air grew cold enough that his breath came out in pale mist. His lantern dimmed again, as though something was feeding on its light. From the corner of his eye, he saw movement inside the cage. He turned sharply, raising the lantern. Two glowing eyes stared back at him. They were not human eyes. They shone with a pale, unnatural light, piercing through the shadows. They were ancient eyes that had seen ages come and go, eyes that had waited for this moment. Ethan froze, his mind struggling to accept what he saw. The cage had been empty. He had seen it himself. Yet now the darkness inside seemed alive, forming shapes that shifted and twisted as though the shadows had weight. Then came the voice. It was soft, almost a whisper, but it carried through the vast chamber as if spoken directly into his ear. "I've waited long enough. Human." Ethan stumbled backward, nearly dropping his lantern. His chest tightened as fear gripped him, but at the same time, a strange calmness accompanied the words. The voice was neither cruel nor kind. It was simply certain. He tried to speak, but his mouth felt dry. After a long pause, he managed to ask, "Waited for me?" The glowing eyes did not blink. The shifting darkness pressed against the bars of the cage, though the creature did not step out. "For humanity," the voice replied, soft yet firm. "For your kind. You have forgotten, but I have not. Time has no meaning in this place. I have waited, and now—" "The cage is open." Ethan's hands trembled. He wanted to run, yet his legs refused to move. Something in those words held him still. "What are you?" he asked, his voice low, almost a whisper. The shadows swirled like smoke, forming something that looked almost like a figure, tall, thin, and indistinct. The glowing eyes remained fixed on him. "You will know in time," the being said. "But first you must choose." "Choose what?" "To fear me, or to remember me." Ethan could not understand the meaning of the words, yet they struck something deep within him. Memories he did not have, stories he had never heard, seemed to tug at the edges of his mind. Humanity had never mentioned such a being, and yet something inside him felt as if these words were not new but long forgotten. The being did not move closer. It simply watched, waiting. Ethan slowly steadied his breathing. "You were trapped here. For how long?" "Longer than your world has known its own name," the being answered. "Imprisoned not by humans, but by those who feared what I would become if you remembered." Ethan's pulse quickened. "If we remembered what?" The voice fell silent for a moment, and the chamber seemed to lean in, waiting. Then it whispered again, low and steady, "That we are bound." The words carried a weight Ethan could not explain. He felt them echo not in his ears but in his chest, as though something old inside him had stirred awake. The glowing eyes flickered, softer now. The being stepped closer to the bars, though its body remained shrouded in shifting shadows. "You freed me, human. Whether by chance or fate, it no longer matters. The door is open. The waiting is over." Ethan took a shaky breath. He had come seeking ruins and knowledge. Instead, he had opened something ancient, something that should perhaps never have been touched. Yet deep down he knew there was no turning back now. The cage stood wide open, and the eyes that glowed within it promised that his life, and perhaps all of humanity, was about to change forever. Ethan stood frozen, his lantern trembling in his hand as the cage's new occupant stared at him with glowing eyes. Shadows pressed against the bars like waves of black smoke, yet they never spilled past the boundary. His instincts screamed at him to run, but his curiosity, his greatest strength and weakness, held him in place. He had seen ruins, ancient machines, even alien writing that no one could translate, but nothing compared to this, a living presence from a forgotten age waiting for a human. The voice came again, softer now, but filled with strange weight. "You are afraid." Ethan swallowed hard, forcing his dry throat to work. "Anyone would be afraid." The being tilted its head, the shadows shifting like a cloak. "And yet you remain. That makes you different." He tightened his grip on the lantern. "What are you?" The eyes glowed brighter. "A prisoner. A guardian. A memory of what your kind once promised." Ethan frowned. "Promised?" "Humanity has no record of you." The being let out a sound that was not quite a laugh, not quite a sigh. "Your people forgot. They walked away from the stars once, and when they returned they believed themselves alone. But I remember. I remember the day your ancestors left me here." The words hit Ethan like a stone. "My ancestors? You're saying humans put you in this cage?" "No," the being said firmly. "Not humans. My enemies. But your kind agreed I should wait here hidden until the time was right. Until you were ready." Ethan's mind spun. The chamber, the symbols on the bars, the impossible sense of age, it all pointed to something ancient beyond measure. Yet the being spoke with such certainty, as if this was truth carved into the fabric of history. His voice shook as he asked, "Ready for what?" The being's eyes narrowed. "To remember the bond." Ethan opened his mouth to press for more, but before he could speak, the chamber shuddered. A deep hum filled the air, vibrating through the stone floor. The glowing symbols on the cage bars flared brighter, then slowly faded to nothing. The cage was no longer a prison. The being stepped forward. Its form flowed like living shadow, taller than Ethan but not solid. It moved gracefully, each step silent, as if the ground itself feared to resist. Ethan staggered back. His lantern flickered wildly, and for a moment the shadows stretched across the walls like dark wings. "Wait, stop," he shouted. The being halted just beyond the bars. The glowing eyes softened. "You freed me. I will not harm you." Ethan's chest heaved as he tried to calm himself. He had heard promises before, but never from something that looked like living night. Yet something in the tone, steady, calm, neither angry nor cruel, made him believe the words. Still, his voice was cautious. "If you won't harm me, then what do you want?" The being tilted its head. "I want what I was promised. I want to stand beside your kind again. I want to keep you safe, as I once swore to do." Ethan stared, stunned. "Safe? From what?" The being's gaze turned toward the ceiling, as if looking beyond stone and earth. "They are still out there. The ones who caged me. The ones who feared what would happen if humans remembered me. The moment you opened the door, a signal was sent. They will come. Ethan felt a chill crawl down his spine. Come here? To this planet? Yes, and when they arrive, they will not stop here. They will search for your world, for all your kind. The weight of the words hit Ethan harder than he expected. He had always thought of humanity as small players in the galaxy, curious explorers, fragile but persistent. To imagine an ancient enemy turning its eyes on Earth made his stomach twist. And you expect me to just believe all this? He asked. The being's eyes glowed brighter. I expect you to listen. You are human. That makes you part of this, whether you wish it or not. Ethan turned in a slow circle, his lantern casting shaky light across the chamber. The place felt different now, less like a ruin and more like a living trap that had just been undone. He wanted answers. No, he needed answers, but every question led to more confusion. Finally, he steadied himself. If what you say is true, then explain. What is this bond you keep talking about? The being stepped closer, though it still did not touch him. The shadows curled at its feet like smoke. Long ago, when humans first walked the stars, they were not alone. They were young, fragile, but bold. My kind saw strength in them, a fire that could not be extinguished. We swore to guard them, and in return they swore to remember us. Together we faced enemies that sought to erase all life, and we prevailed. Ethan's eyes widened. You're saying humanity once fought beside you? That humans had space travel thousands of years ago? Yes, the being said simply. But when the war ended, your kind chose to forget. They sealed away their knowledge, turned their eyes back to their homeworld and left me here sleeping, waiting for the day they returned to the stars. Ethan shook his head slowly. It was too much. If this being spoke the truth, then everything humanity believed about its history was wrong. Why forget? He asked. The being's eyes dimmed. Perhaps they were afraid. Perhaps they wanted peace. Or perhaps they knew the war was not truly over, and they hoped hiding would keep you safe. But hiding never lasts forever. The chamber grew colder. Ethan hugged his arms around himself, the weight of the story pressing heavily on his chest. He looked into those glowing eyes again. For all the fear they inspired, he saw no malice there. Only patience. Only the heavy burden of waiting too long. And now? He asked quietly. Now, the being said, you must choose whether humanity will remember, or remain blind until it is too late. Silence filled the chamber. Ethan's thoughts spun wildly. He had come here looking for ruins, not destiny. Yet here he was, standing before something older than human history, something that claimed to be bound to his kind. His first instinct was to deny it, to walk away, to leave this impossible truth behind. But deep down he knew he couldn't. The cage was open. The signal had already gone out. The being stepped back, giving him space. I do not ask for your trust, human. Only your time. Walk with me and see. Then decide. Ethan's heart pounded. He could not explain why, but he nodded. The shadows shifted and the glowing eyes softened, almost in relief. Good. The being whispered. The waiting is finally over. Ethan followed the shadow being through the endless corridors of the underground structure. His lantern flickered, but strangely the presence of the being seemed to light the way. Wherever its glowing eyes looked, the darkness pulled back, leaving a path clear. The silence pressed heavy around them. Ethan wanted to speak, to demand more answers, but the weight of what he had already heard left him unsure where to start. His footsteps echoed softly against the stone floor, and every sound reminded him how alone he would have been without the creature beside him. Finally, he broke the silence. If your enemies are coming, how much time do we have? The being did not slow its graceful steps. Not long. The signal went out the moment the cage opened. They will hear it. They will follow. Ethan frowned. You make it sound like they've been waiting too, just like you. They were never far, the being replied. They wander the edges of the galaxy, watching, listening. They feared that one day the door would open. And now it has. Ethan's chest tightened. He had always thought of the galaxy as vast and mostly empty. Humanity's ships had only touched a fraction of the stars, and though they had found traces of long-dead civilizations, they had never encountered living ones. To think of a hidden enemy watching from the shadows made the galaxy suddenly feel smaller, and far more dangerous. They reached a broken archway that led to a surface tunnel. Cold air rushed through, carrying the faint scent of rain. Ethan realized with surprise that hours had passed underground. He could see a faint glow of the sky beyond, dusk settling over the barren landscape. The being stopped at the mouth of the tunnel. Its eyes lifted to the sky. They will come in ships, fast and silent. Your kind has no defense strong enough to stop them. Ethan's throat tightened. You say that like it's already decided. If humanity has no defense, what chance do we have? The being turned its glowing gaze toward him. With me a chance. Without me, none. Ethan's heart pounded. He wanted to argue, but deep inside he knew the truth. Earth had no weapons to fight ancient enemies. Humanity was still learning to explore the stars, not fight wars across them, but trusting a creature of shadow, trusting something that had been locked away for ages, was not easy. Why should I believe you? Ethan asked quietly. The being's eyes softened. You should not. Belief is not asked, only choice. You saw the cage. You know it was built not by your kind, but by mine. If I meant you harm, why wait until now? Why speak at all? Ethan had no answer. The words made sense, even if his fear still lingered. They stepped out into the open air. The sky above was wide, streaked with fading colors of orange and purple. The land stretched empty, a desert of stone and wind. Ethan felt suddenly small under the endless heavens. The being lifted its head, eyes glowing brighter in the dim light. Already I can hear them. Ethan stiffened. Hear what? The enemy, the being whispered. They whisper across the void. They prepare. Ethan strained his ears, but he heard nothing, only the wind. They fear me, the being continued. But they fear what you will become even more. Ethan shook his head. I don't understand. Why me? I'm just one man. I'm not a leader. I'm not a soldier. I'm an explorer. The being looked at him for a long time. Because you are human, and that is enough. The words sent a strange shiver through him. Simple but heavy. He wanted to protest again, but before he could, a low rumble filled the air. Ethan turned his eyes to the sky. At first he thought it was thunder. Then he saw the streaks of light cutting across the horizon. Not meteors, not natural, ships. His chest tightened. They're already here? Yes, the being said calmly. Faster than I hoped. The lights grew brighter, splitting into several trails. Ethan counted at least 5. They moved with precision, descending toward the planet like hawks to prey. Panic shot through him. We need to hide! The being shook its head. Hiding will not save you. They are not here for me. They are here for you. Ethan's blood ran cold. For me? Why? Because you opened the cage. Because you spoke with me. That makes you a link to what they fear most. Ethan's hands trembled. He had only wanted to study ruins, to chase knowledge. Now he was marked by enemies older than history itself. The ships descended lower, their forms now clear against the fading sky, sleek, sharp, and utterly alien. Their surfaces gleamed with dark metal, and no flames or engines marked their fall. They simply glided silent and sure, as if the air itself bent to carry them. Ethan's instinct screamed again, run. But where could he run? On an empty planet under open skies. The being stepped closer. Its shadows curled protectively around him. They will not expect you to stand. They will not expect humanity to remember. That is your strength, Ethan's voice cracked. Remember what? I still don't know what you want from me. The glowing eyes fixed on him. Not want. Need. You must decide whether to let them erase you or to fight beside me. Ethan's mind raced. He had no weapon that could stop ships. No army behind him. Just fear, confusion, and the weight of impossible truth. And yet, something in the being's words struck him deeply. He thought of Earth, of the millions of lives who had no idea that alien eyes now watched them. He thought of all the stories of humanity's courage, of survival against impossible odds. Maybe that was why the being waited for humans, not for strength, not for power, but for stubbornness, for the will to fight when all seemed lost. The ships drew closer, hovering now above the desert plain. A strange hum filled the air, pressing into Ethan's bones. He clenched his fists. His voice shook, but he forced the words out. If I fight with you, can we stop them? The being's eyes blazed brighter than before. Together, yes, Ethan swallowed hard. His fear did not vanish, but something steadier rose to join it. Resolve. Then I'll stand, he said. I'll fight. The being's shadows surged around him like a cloak. The air grew colder, sharper, alive with unseen energy. For the first time, Ethan felt the presence not as a threat but as protection. The enemy ships opened, light spilling from their underbellies. Shapes descended, tall figures cloaked in silver armor, their movements silent and perfect. Their heads turned in unison toward Ethan. The leader raised a hand and a voice rang out cold and hollow. "Human, step away from the shadow, or be erased." Ethan's heart pounded, but he stood firm. The being at his side whispered softly, a voice only he could hear. "Do not fear. You are not alone anymore." And for the first time, Ethan believed it. The night was colder than usual, and the human sat near the small fire he had built with dry wood. The alien princess was beside him, her long eyes fixed on the stars above. For a while, neither of them spoke. The silence was not heavy. It felt peaceful, like both of them were slowly learning how to understand each other without words. The human thought about how strange his life had become. Weeks ago, he was only an ordinary soldier who had no idea he would one day sit beside an alien princess on a distant world. He looked at her again and noticed how tired she looked. Her royal dress was torn from battles, and her face, though calm, carried a weight of sorrow. Finally, she spoke softly. "Do you ever miss your home?" The human nodded. "Every day, but if I had never left, I would not be here. Maybe things happen for a reason." The princess looked at him carefully. His answer carried a kind of strength she did not often hear from others. In her world, many warriors spoke of power, weapons, or glory, but he spoke of reason, fate, and choices. That difference made her chest feel lighter, even though her life had been full of pain. The fire crackled, and a soft wind passed between them. The human picked up a small piece of wood and threw it into the flames. "Your people," he said. "They don't trust me, do they?" The princess lowered her head. "Some see you as a danger. Others see you as strange, but—" She hesitated before finishing. "I see you as something else." He turned to her. "What do you see?" Her voice trembled a little, though she tried to hide it. "I see someone who stands with me when no one else dares to." For a long moment, they just looked at each other. The fire's glow reflected in their eyes. The human felt something deep move inside him, a quiet bond growing stronger with each passing day. The sound of footsteps broke the moment. Both of them stood quickly, alert. From the shadows, a group of her guards appeared. Their leader bowed to the princess. "We have found signs of the enemy near the valley," he said. The princess tightened her grip on her cloak. "How many?" "Too many for a small force." They prepared a march. The human glanced at her. "Then we must act before they reach your people." The guards looked uneasy. One of them whispered, "We should not listen to him. He is not one of us." The princess raised her hand, silencing them. Her voice was steady. "He is with me." His words carry weight. The human could see the guards did not like it, but they obeyed. He knew trust was something hard to earn here. Yet the fact that she spoke for him gave him courage. That night they traveled toward the valley together. The human walked beside her, their steps steady in the dark. When they reached the cliffs overlooking the valley, the scene below made them both pause. Hundreds of enemy soldiers were setting up camp, their fires burning across the land like stars on the ground. The princess's face grew pale. "If they march tomorrow, my city will fall." The human studied the ground carefully. He noticed the layout, the way the enemy placed their weapons, the way their guards moved. His eyes sharpened. He had seen such patterns before in his own wars. "We cannot fight them head-on," he said, "but we can slow them down. If their food and supplies burn, they will not march." The princess looked at him with surprise. "You would risk entering their camp alone?" He smiled faintly. "I am human. Risk is something I know well," but she shook her head firmly. "No, you will not go alone. I will go with you." He wanted to argue, but when he looked at her eyes, he saw there was no way to change her mind. She was not only a princess, she was a warrior who refused to hide while her people were in danger. Together, they waited until the night deepened. Then they moved silently down the cliffside, creeping through the shadows of rocks and trees. The human's heart beat fast, but his hands were steady. He could hear the enemy soldiers laughing and talking near their fires, unaware that two figures had slipped into their camp. The human pointed toward the supply wagons. The princess nodded. They worked together, moving quietly, placing oil and dry cloth among the enemy's goods. Every step felt dangerous, but neither of them stopped. At last, when they had finished, the human struck a small spark with flint. The fire caught quickly, spreading through the wagons. Within moments, flames rose high, lighting the dark sky. Shouts filled the camp. Soldiers ran in panic trying to put out the fire. But it was too late, the supplies were gone. The enemy would not march soon. The human and the princess ran back into the shadows. Arrows whistled past them as the enemy realized someone had caused the fire. One arrow struck near the human's foot, but he kept running, pulling the princess with him. When they finally reached the safety of the cliffs, both of them dropped to the ground, breathing hard. The princess looked at him and laughed softly, though her eyes were still wide with fear. "You are mad," she whispered. He laughed too, shaking his head. "Maybe, but it worked." They sat side by side again, this time with the fire of battle still burning in their memories. The princess's hand brushed against his as she adjusted her cloak. She did not pull it away. After a while, she spoke quietly. "You risked your life for my people," he turned to her. "And you risked yours beside me. That is what matters." Her heart felt strange. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. In her world, many bowed, many obeyed, many admired her for her title. But he looked at her as if she was simply a person, not a crown. That thought warmed her more than any fire could. The next day, word spread among her people that the enemy had been delayed. Many celebrated, not knowing the true reason why. But a few of her guards whispered to each other that the human had played a part. Slowly, their eyes began to soften when they looked at him. The princess saw this change and felt hope. She turned to the human that evening. "You see? Little by little, they will learn to trust you." He smiled faintly. "As long as you trust me, that is enough." Her eyes lingered on him. For a moment, she almost said something more, something her heart wanted to release, but she held it back, unsure if it was the right time. Instead, she said, "The war is not over. But tonight we have given my people a chance." He nodded. "And we will keep fighting together." The stars shone above them, bright and endless. The princess looked at the human again. And in her heart she felt that maybe fate had brought him here not only to save her world, but also to change her life forever. The morning after the fire in the valley, the camp of the princess's people was filled with new energy. Children laughed, elders whispered prayers of thanks, and soldiers sharpened their weapons with a brighter look in their eyes. The news that the enemy's march had been delayed gave them hope. The princess walked among her people, her steps graceful but firm. She looked at their faces and felt both relief and responsibility. They were looking to her for strength. At her side walked the human, quiet but watchful. Even though many still glanced at him with doubt, they no longer turned away in coldness. Something was changing. One young guard, braver than the others, finally spoke to him. "You helped the princess, didn't you?" His voice carried both curiosity and respect. The human did not boast. He only nodded. "We worked together." The guard blinked as if surprised by his simple answer. Then he bowed slightly before stepping away. The princess noticed and smiled softly to herself. Little by little, trust was growing. That night, the princess invited the human to sit in the council tent. Her advisors and commanders were already there, speaking of strategies. When the human entered, a few frowned, but none dared to speak against the princess's choice. She lifted her chin and addressed them. "We cannot wait for the enemy to gather strength again. We must strike before they recover, but we need a plan, one that uses not only our numbers but also our minds." The human leaned forward. "The fire we set destroyed their food. That means they will be desperate. Hungry soldiers make mistakes. If we block the river that runs through the valley, they will not have water either." The tent fell silent. Several commanders exchanged glances. The idea was bold and dangerous, but it also made sense. One of the older advisors cleared his throat. "It could work. The river is narrow in parts. Stones and trees could be used." Another commander still looked doubtful. "And who will lead such a mission?" "It is risky." The princess's eyes moved toward the human. He met her gaze steadily. "I will lead it," he said without hesitation. Whispers filled the tent. Some voices questioned, some voices supported. But the princess raised her hand, ending the noise. "He has my trust. If he is willing, then I will stand beside him." No one dared argue after that. The next days were spent in preparation. Soldiers carried heavy stones, cut down strong trees, and shaped tools. The human worked with them, lifting logs, guiding the placement of ropes, and sweating under the same sun as they did. At first, many watched him with suspicion, but soon they saw he did not act above them. He worked as hard as any, never complaining. One young boy from the village brought him water while he rested for a moment. "Are you really not afraid?" the boy asked innocently. The human smiled at him. Being afraid is normal, but courage is moving even when you are afraid. The boy grinned and ran back to tell others what he had heard. Soon, the simple words spread like a small flame among the people. The alien villagers began to see the human not as an outsider, but as someone with a brave heart. Finally, the night of the mission came. The human, the princess, and a chosen group of warriors moved quietly toward the river. The moonlight guided them as they carried stones and logs. The sound of water filled the valley. The human directed them carefully. Place the logs across first, then the stones will hold them. His voice was calm, though his muscles burned with effort. The princess worked beside him, lifting and tying ropes with her own hands. The soldiers at first tried to stop her, saying, "You are our princess. Let us do this." But she shook her head firmly. "I am also your warrior." Her words inspired them. No one complained again. Slowly, hour by hour, the dam took shape. The flow of water weakened, then slowed more. By dawn, the river that fed the enemy's camp was reduced to a trickle. The warriors looked at their work with pride, but their success did not go unnoticed. From the distance, the sound of horns echoed. The enemy had discovered them. Torches lit up on the far side of the valley. "Quickly, we must retreat," one guard shouted. The human scanned the area and shook his head. "If we run, they will follow and break the dam. We must hold them here." The princess tightened her grip on her blade. "Then we hold." The warriors gathered, forming a line across the narrow pass by the river. The enemy rushed forward, their footsteps thunderous. The first clash of steel rang in the morning air. The human fought fiercely, his movements sharp and precise. He had no alien weapon, only a simple sword he had taken days before, but in his hands it became deadly. Each swing was controlled, each strike made with purpose. The princess fought beside him, her movements graceful yet strong. Together they seemed to understand each other without words. When one stepped forward, the other covered the side. When one stumbled, the other shielded. The battle was fierce, but the narrow pass gave them an advantage. Enemy numbers mattered less when only a few could fight at once. Still, the human's arms grew heavy, his breath harsh. He knew they could not hold forever. Then as the sun rose higher, a horn sounded from the cliffs above. Reinforcements from the princess's city had arrived. Her people had come, answering the call. The enemy, seeing themselves outmatched and weakened without food or water, began to retreat. Shouts of victory filled the valley as the princess's warriors chased them back. When it was finally over, the human fell to his knees, exhausted. His sword slipped from his hand. The princess rushed to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You did it," she whispered. He looked up at her, his face tired but smiling. "No, we did it." Her eyes softened, and for a moment she forgot the crowd around them. She saw only him, the human who had risked everything for her people. That evening, the entire city celebrated. Fires burned high, music filled the air, and food was shared freely. The people cheered for their princess, and many also spoke the human's name with respect. One elder stood and raised his voice. "This man came from another world. At first we doubted him, but today he has shown his courage. He fought not for himself, but for all of us. Let us welcome him as one of our own." The crowd erupted with cheers. The human felt warmth rise in his chest. For the first time, he did not feel like a stranger. The princess stepped forward, her eyes shining under the firelight. She raised her hand, silencing the crowd. Her voice was steady, yet filled with emotion. "He came to us as a prisoner, but now he stands as a friend. And perhaps more than that. Without him, we would not stand here in victory." The crowd cheered again, louder this time. The human looked at her, surprised by her words. But the way she held his gaze left no doubt. Her feelings for him had grown deeper than simple gratitude. Later, when the noise of celebration had faded and the stars returned to the sky, the human and the princess sat together again, just as they had so many nights before. She looked at him softly. "Do you ever wonder why fate brought you here?" He nodded. "Every day. But now, I think I begin to understand." Her lips curved into a gentle smile. She reached out, her hand resting lightly on his. Perhaps fate wanted us to find each other. The night was silent, the stars endless. And in that moment, both the human and the princess knew that their story had only just begun.